a good morning to you all. Welcome to Asake Online. My name is Zenzeren Devele, and this is the Breakfast Club. And today we bring you yet another story where we talk to, former ZIPRA comrades, combatants, commanders, and to get the interesting history of ZIPRA. I always get people asking me, why are you talking about ZIPRA and not ZANLA? Why are you talking about... There's one reason why I'm talking about ZIPRA and spending so much time looking for these ZIPRA comrades is because their history has been ignored for a long time. As a student of history in school, I did history from Form 1 up to A level, and I hardly knew many of the ZIPRA people that I'm always talked about. I just knew the history of Lobengula, Mziliga, Neanda, and then a lot about ZANLA. So I had taken it upon myself to educate the young generation about the struggles of our fathers and our grandfathers so that they are not forgotten in the books of history. And we also have to acknowledge the role that they played in liberating Zimbabwe. And today in the program, we'll be talking to retired Major Ivan J.K. Sibona. He is also, during the war, he was known as Barberton Mzwambira, Mzwambila. He's a former front commander, the Southern Front. Barberton is also an author. He has written a book. Some of you might have known or read the book. It's called Nation Born of Violence, ZIPRA Struggle Against Rhodesia in Alliance with ANC's Umkhonto weSizwe. He tells me he has 2 more books in production. So it is always exciting. It's always good that we get our comrades to write history, because I've seen that over the years history has been rewritten by the victors and those who have the means to produce the knowledge. But if they can also write their stories, I think it will be good. We about 2-3 years ago, I think around 2018, we had an interview with Barberton, but then we were focusing more on his book. And over the years, I've talked to him on many issues. We've agreed on some, we've disagreed on others. And today, I want to focus more on a lot of structural and organizational issues, more than where he trained and all these kind of things, because we know he has told us a lot about his training in Tanzania, Morogoro, and today we want to focus on Barberton as the commander, Barberton in the Southern Front, Barberton with looking at the history of ZIPRA and looking back, reflecting what went wrong, what went right. I hope we are going to have a very open discussion. Welcome to the program.
Thank you very much.
I know I've given an elaborate introduction about what you do, but mainly, like I said, that our focus, I want us to look at some of the issues that people usually avoid. And I want to start with something that is in your book. If you look at just the introduction and you talk about the metamorphosis of the ZIPRA crisis, and you say ZIPRA was unable to structure field operations to win the war, And I find that quite interesting. And to say, ultimately, it has to do with, although ZIPRA was a good army, it had good command structures, it could have surprised the Rhodesian government and won early independence. What's your idea behind this statement?
The idea is simple, based on let me explain the metamorphosis aspect of things. First, all I meant is that ZIPRA was built in different stages, and in all those stages that it was built in, at some point there was, the first one would have been probably sabotage. Then it was not ZIPRA, but it was Special Affairs. Later, when the Special Affairs improved from what its objectives were, first the objectives would have been the sabotage of the Rhodesian government, sabotaging infrastructure and so on. But as time went by, there was need to actually create an army a proper military established type of an army. And that was done. But as everybody well knows, that there was something like, the wonky battles of the 1967 and so on. So after the 1967, they also discovered that they had made a mistake by sending in big units. So the metamorphosis, I meant reborn, rebirth, and continuous going back as would happen with insects. But the crisis that came by in the 70s also changed and shifted the balance of what was meant to be, or what turned out to be ZIPRA later at a later date, say 1971. The problem is the progress that was being made. One, assuming that in 1967, if that success had been followed up, probably at the same rate as had happened, one would have seen probably a more formidable kind of, struggle. But things changed because suddenly there was some power problems between Chikerema and JZ Moyo. And it is in this stage that ZIPRA was reborn again. Whether it was reborn for the success or not, but at that time, probably in my own assessment, it would have been already too late, because if it had been in the 1967, followed the 1967 actions, it would have probably been better. But then we started again at a different stage. I recall at that time, probably people who started were only a few guerrillas, about 9. And those 9 guerrillas were able to close the Rhodesian border. So, a good success. But when you look back again, there were other things that pulled it back. So in mentioning the crisis, there was always a crisis that brought it back to square one step further, 2 steps backwards, and so on, continuously up until its independence.
Yeah, so you say there are some mistakes that were done by the political and the command elements of ZIPRA and ZAPU that could have been avoided. Yeah, do you have any in mind to say these are some of the mistakes that led to probably ZIPRA not winning the war?
Firstly, going back to 1967, the biggest mistake was that at that time, though it was called Special Affairs, it was more of a political body than a military. Though they were pretty well trained, but it was controlled by the civilian body. And as a result, it was not really an army, or call it a Ratas type of an army. I'm sure people like Boko would not agree with me when I say that kind of statement. But the truth is, while they were well trained and ready to fight, it could not be followed up. And soon, because of political interference by the politicians and direct involvement of the politicians in the affairs of the military. In fact, that is what actually created the rebirth of ZIPRA, because ZIPRA was created to actually avoid the influence of the civilians into the military affairs. And that's how Alfred Nikita was appointed to run the army completely without any influence from outside.
So in your view, one of the mistakes, or you call them the catastrophic mistakes, was the alliance between ANC and the Special Affairs. Yet in many people's eyes, that was the beginning of things, and up to now we talk about this cooperation as one of the achievements.
Well, it was a greatest mistake. I think there was a little oversight in not even, there was some little, I think people forgot one thing, that bringing in ANC into the scene as early as 1967 would bring South African Army into. I don't know who the politicians were. They made a fatal mistake in assessing this, because while ANC had the alliance with ZAPU, actually, I don't think the alliance was actually on black and white. But at the same time, the ANC wanted to pass by, because there wasn't any way of going to fight in their struggle in South Africa. So they asked ZAPU to actually help if they could go cross with them. And they did. But in doing so, brought in the South African Army into the scene, which now became difficult. To me, it's a fatal mistake, because the South African Army at that time, though they brought in a lesser military outfit, they brought in, so I'm told, the South African police, but it wasn't really South African police. Let me put it down as the military. And it deployed all the way from Plumtree up to Faida. So you now were fighting the Rhodesian Army and the South African Army. And it would have been much better if ZIPRA had fought the Rhodesians, because they were either going to treat it as just some little insurgency and nothing more than that, that kind of thing, and they would not have invited the South African Army. Inviting the South African Army also influenced the political scene. If you go further into 1994 or 95, when Nkomo was released from prison, the South Africans were now able to be players in our affairs. Foster was now able to influence Smith to accept certain talks, and at some point, he would give him military equipment and things like that. So if all this thing had not happened, I'm not suggesting that the ANC should not have been brought, but as early as 1967, it was a catastrophic mistake at that time.
So the other thing that I find interesting is that you say ZIPRA's fast development did not necessarily translate to efficiency.
No.
Yeah. Why do you say so?
I'm saying so. The first development of ZIPRA, let me start as when it starts in 1972. The influence it had on the political scene was so great that people did not notice at that time, or even the Smith government did not notice at that time, that ZIPRA did not actually have a strong army. It only had a very few guerrillas. For instance, if I may give you an example of the closure of the border in 1973, the closure was only done because only a group of 9 guerrillas effectively fought, and Mangena, who was the commander, would bundle them into a Land Rover, put them up into another different front, move them up the next week and the next 2 days and everybody believed that the ZIPRA had a big army, and yet we had very few people. Let's look at it this way. The ZIPRA growth only came by after 1976. In fact, it was a forced growth, if I may say. The forced growth in the sense that we, similarly like ZANU had done in 1972, ZANU had adopted children from school. And it became good news, big news worldwide that ZANU had taken people in St. Albert's. ZIPRA did the same in 1976 or 77. It did the same in adopting children in Manama. Some of them today we have been foreign ministers and whatnot, and they excelled in their lives. Some were in Teguane, they're doctors and etc. But all this had an impact, so much impact to the world that people now thought we were everywhere. That means this is what was. As a result, on internal politics, people began to believe in us. That's the growth. The growth of ZIPRA was just within a space of about 2 years. That's when we had, from 1976, end of 1976 to 1978, we were able to garner almost some 20,000 people, which is not what ZIPRA had in terms of figures earlier, in the earlier years. So the growth was so quick, spontaneously. I don't know what to say, because they have, in fact, similarly with ZANU as well, I think. But in ZIPRA's case, we had smaller numbers before, very, very small numbers. And after the crisis, we were almost crippled completely. But the growth was so very quick thereafter.
So when you finished training, where are you deployed?
When I finished training, I was sent to Mozambique. It was one of the most interesting periods, in the sense that when the leaders had been released from prison, they all flooded into Zambia, and everybody else, including Muzorewa, including Chikerema, and everybody else was involved with their own political parties. And suddenly we were told that there had been some unification of some kind, and we were told we were going to be going to Mozambique. I don't think anything was explained to anybody in any way, in the exception that we knew that Nkomo and other leaders wanted to unify. In fact, there was a time when there was how could I say? There was a time when the leaders actually visited military camps, all the leaders visiting military camps, and in the exception of Mugabe, because at that time, Mugabe left and went to Mozambique, or hadn't left. And at the time when he left to Mozambique, there was this commotion in ZANU, in which they did not want their leader. And I don't know who had, whatever that Tole was a sellout or something like that. So the outside cadres who were in Mokakau and other military camps suddenly didn't want their leader. And there was another problem that arose over the arrest of the leadership of ZANU, especially the military, ZANLA in particular. So then, in the process, I suppose it must have been Nkomo trying to rescue ZANU and wanting at the same time the unification of the people of Zimbabwe. It may have contributed to this creation of going to Mozambique, which was now termed ZIPA, Zimbabwe People's Army. And we were taken to Dar es Salaam and flown to Tete. And that was probably around 1975. Mozambique had attained its independence in June 25. And it was probably around 4 or 5 months after that this creation of ZIPA and deployment started immediately shortly after that. I was there, flown by December of 1975, flown into Tete. And then that's when we realized for the first time that we were in a different setup than what we always knew.
So you get to Mozambique. How is the situation? What happens? Do you cooperate? What?
Completely shocking. You are just getting off the plane and you get into a hangar, a big, huge hangar, and you have a deputy minister of defense of Mozambique. He was called Mapote. And Mapote comes up and he says there's no more political parties, and something that you never heard back a few days ago. You never heard anything like that. And he says there's no more. Now this time you are going to be soldiers. Your job is to fight. You're going to be fighting and not fighting for politicians. You're fighting for yourselves. You are the people who are going to be ruling. And you can't argue when a defense minister is talking. And suddenly we are taken out of the hangar and we are put in a, and there was this big shock. I mean, a shock, because we didn't expect, we expected some trained personnel all lined up, all in good uniform and so on. And suddenly we had about over 1,000 people all on parade and all sloganeering and basi na nkomo, basi na dumbu. I said, what's this now? Dumbu Guru and all. I said, what's this now? And there's one could have understood it in a different way, because since ZANU no longer had any leadership at that time, because there was a contest, the leadership was being contested. Sithole had been thrown out. He was also making a claim, and there wasn't anyone else on the scene. The military at that time, a man like Tongogara had been in jail, and the rest of his administration had been jailed in Zambia for the death of Chitepo, for other criminal activities that had taken place in Zambia.
So who was in charge?
In ZANU, the only person who had been in charge is Nongo. And he came in front of us, and we are lined up here. We are a contingent of a very small, we'll call it a small army, smartly well dressed in some rice uniform and so on. But of course, there's no guns here this time. There aren't guns. We're just soldiers. And Dongo comes in, he walks up in front, and all slogan now is Pamberine ZANU, and here you are. And now you are also.
So are you saying Pamberine ZANU as well?
No. we are not, but we are shocked. Completely shell shocked. We are amongst the 1,000 people, and they are all. You can imagine the noise of 1,000 people, and all singing this song. I'll never forget this song. Chitepo Wakafa Chitaura, and Wakafa Chitaura, and it was shocking. I mean, it's shocking. And you looked around, you only saw, you were just a small whatever. And Nongo walks in, and slogan, passing Nkomo, passing whatever. And then he says, you are going to be going to war starting tomorrow. And I don't see no ZIPRA commander, I don't see no one else. And this guy is telling us that he's going to be sending us into war. As who? As what? And we were, more than shell-shocked. And the guy says, when you leave here, we'll line you up there, you get the weapons, and we'll get into the trucks, and we're sending you straight to the border. Tichasangana ku Causeway.
Causeway is in Salisbury.
Salisbury, yes. Then it is in Salisbury. So Harare now. The first thing I could not apprehend is when somebody says to you, Tichasangana ku Causeway, we will meet in Causeway. Is he implying that he's going to give us enough ammunition, enough to sustain ourselves? War is not a one-day activity. And I just couldn't get it around my own head. I was not the commander. There were other commanders. Lemon Ndolwane was actually the head. And we were two of the bottom guys, me and George Chafunduka. And we just didn't know what to say, really. And thereafter, we are taken, after the parade, we are taken into the, some trucks to go into Frelimo camps, where we had a series of meetings about how people were going to go and who was going to go and all sorts. But Frelimo was only doing so in assisting. What we did not realize at that time is that ZANU had been disoriented, and what we had in as a camp, in people who were all there, were completely untrained. But the effect of intimidation had been done, and it was Zipra had already been intimidated from the word go. Just that incident of the first parade
So,
just disoriented you, kept people unaware of completely, and not seeing even the Zipra commanders that we knew. We were just lost.
so the business of singing at the airport, it did not start now.
You meaning?
Going to the airport and meeting people.
Oh no! Of course not. It didn't start now. But let's look at it this way. It wasn't at that time. It wasn't. It was just middle management. If in ZANU PF, like say for instance, people like Wondo, people like Machingura, those were the people who were running things. And Rex Nongo, having been Zipra himself, and I suspect, I have no confirmation of this one, but I suspect people put Rex Nongo in because they said, iwewe unoziva unovaziva because you once Zipra yourself, you can go. And they knew Ondo, who were young boys, they knew very well they were not the kind of people to handle a person like Mangena. Mangena was really a commander, nothing to talk of, Nana Ondo and so on. So it was going to be difficult for them had Mangena been made commander. Because I think there would ZANU would have had big problems. But now Nongo was brought in on the basis that he probably knew Zipra. And so he was also up for the calling. So he did his job. And I'll say I'm not wanting to say he was an opportunist, but the situation was more opportunistic for him for the taking, and he did.
So where is the Zipra command element at this moment?
At that point in time, Zipra command is nowhere near. They are in as far as Maputo, if they had arrived. That is, they went to Maputo, which was probably where they started. But what ZANU had done, the whole area of Mozambique did not have any camps. So the camps were up in the north. And the camps were controlled by ZANU because ZANU had its camps. The moment Mozambique became independent, ZANU were grouped up and put up in some camps, and they accepted that. And just like when we came here ourselves, we had all these assembly points and so on. So they were put up. So we had no choice. We were simply bungled into ZANU camps. That was most catastrophic as well, because therefore ZANU was in total control. We were nowhere near, nobody would boast and say anything. We were just being told by ZANU what to do or whatever. Where we refused, they would probably solicit assistance from the Frelimo. So that's what happened.
So how long do you stay in Mozambique, and how do you finally get out?
I stayed in Mozambique for, let me say, 6 months. But 3 months of that I spent in jail.
So, I mean, tell us about that. How did you get arrested? Because when you've gone there to fight and meet Nongo in Causeway.
We were then taken off from, a decision was made that there should be a new front in Gaza. Because everybody was up in the north, Tembwe and all the like. So everybody now should go, and the whole front should open up. The whole border of Mozambique and Rhodesia should be operational. People should, and Rhodesians were probably taken by surprise, but they didn't expect that. And so some of the groups were then driven to the south, and we were part of the Zipra group that was taken down south. And we weren't alone. We had Zanu as well.